And it looks like we are live.
Excellent. Hello. Hi, folks. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday and happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day. Yes, I had to clamber over mountains of chocolates and flowers this morning.
Liar, liar.
Not liar, liar, pants on fire.
Or since the pandemic, liar, liar, pajama pants on fire.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited that this week we have a lovely guest. I've been trying to get her for God knows how long, but she's always traveling, and we've managed to get it together. So I know a lot of you Beatle fans will know and admire her. She's, well, what can I say?
She is, she's an artist.
An artiste,
first and foremost, has been for a while, but she's also a luthier, which you'll see scrolling across the bottom, which means she makes guitars
yeah,
for United and American to break. And she's also a musician in her own right. And ladies and gentlemen, the crowd goes wild for our dear friend, Shannon.
Hello. Good morning, Shannon.
Ladies, how are you? Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you, too.
How are you both doing?
Cheers.
Oh, fine. Yeah,
cheers.
Cheers.
Be my...
Yeah.
I have my rockin' vodka with me this morning with espresso in it.
Very good. Well, we're going to have a little Mrs. McCartney, because it's Valentine's, we're going to have a little Mrs. McCartney's strawberry cocktail, strawberry wine with our cocktail mixes later. So we'll join you on that.
I have this.
Okay, there's the product shot. Look at that. Oh, if I could just get it in the right place. There we go. So there's a match made in heaven.
That's it. It's wonderful.
Rockin' vodka and McCartney strawberry. That would be a good cocktail, actually.
Yeah, probably. A couple of vats of that in the morning. That'd see you right for the day, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Put you on the right track.
Indeed. Yeah. So be my Valentine, darling. I know you're single at the moment. So if there are any...
God, you know I love blondies too. So yes, I would definitely be your Valentine any day, Ruthie.
Mwah. If I leaned that way, hey, but you know, I've got this bloke called Martin to deal with.
Well, you know, I'm already leaning that way. So
there you go.
I'm not leaning at all.
I'm just trying to lean in case she breaks a hip.
if nobody knew it before, they know it now, right? So
there you go. And it is and all you need is love. So who cares, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. So do you want to, I mean, God, where do you start with a lady like you? Do you want to start with the most recent Gigantor experience, or do you want to go all the way back to the beginning? Yeah, I think we start with Gigantor.
Yeah, the Gigantor is fresh on my mind. And so Gigantor actually started pre-COVID in a little town called Joliet, Illinois, and I met with the owner of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum on Route 66. And we spoke about doing, it was a guitar. They showed me photographs of like a Stratocaster. Musicians would know what that is. Well, people that love George's crazy painted guitar was a Stratocaster.
Right.
And what do you call that? Rocky, right? Wasn't it Rocky? Anyway, the owner, Ron, wanted this Stratocaster looking guitar and it had the neck shape had what they call a banana headstock, which is kind of a long, I wish I had one around. There's all the guitars around here. I don't want to walk away, but it had, it's a longer headstock. So it kind of looked like more heavy metal kind of thing. And their whole idea of their logo was a Route 66 sign, which, you know, I think that placard itself made, especially in the USA. I think Route 66 starts in Santa Monica and works its way right up to Joliet. Yeah. And so it's a very famous road here in the States. And the basic idea I had was, well, you know, your logo shows that, you know, a Route 66 sign as the body of the guitar. Why in the world would we do a Stratocaster type thing? Let's go for the whole, you know, I'll even do it on the headstock at the top. So we'll do a little bit of, you know, without actually putting Route 66, the letters and numbers on the guitar. So it didn't look signage like. So it would be a real sculpture. And at first we talked about doing it out of fiberglass. which seemed to be the way to go at the beginning. But then it started growing, and it went from, I don't know, I think we started talking 15 feet, and then it went to 20 to, and then it went all the way to 24 foot, which was like, wow, we're going to need to have this thing a little bit more stable than the used fiberglass. Now, when I did guitars for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, we did 10-foot guitars, which were made out of fiberglass. That was easy to do because they were easier to handle at 10 feet. You know, you're talking
something like that weigh, a 10-foot fiberglass guitar body?
I can't. Well, let's put it this way: the aluminum one that was done for the Joliet Museum, the Rock and Roll Museum, that was around between 15 to 1,700 pounds, and that was
my God.
Yeah. So the fiberglass ones, I can't remember how much they weighed, but I remember when they were done at 10 foot, they were hollow, and I could pick it up. You know what I mean? I could literally pick it up. I wasn't like I could throw it over my head, and I was younger because that was back
like under 30 pounds, maybe.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so the difference is when you're doing something that's 24 foot, even if you're doing a 24-foot guitar out of fiberglass, you're going to have a armature that's made out of metal at that point, because it's got to be strong, especially in Illinois, the winds that they have and everything. So we decided to go with my team actually, we decided to go with aluminum this time. And of course, they kept on talking about signage. And I said to the owner, look, we're not going to do a sign for you. Let's do something a little bit more artistic and a little bit more involved, and make it, let's do a sculpture and put it on your building. No words, no address, no nothing. Just the bold Route 66 sign without the letters and numbers will be enough where if people go around the corner, they are going to know that that's the place right there.
Sure. Well, and I think, just you making the connection between the shape of a classic American road sign, and also, do you remember the old Union Pacific Railroad signs had that kind of shape, right? Yeah. They were kind of like, I don't know, I'm no guitar expert, but like a Gibson. But just putting that together in the artist's mind of this is Americana and it looks like a guitar is brilliant. But that's why they pay you the big bucks, right?
Well, I guess I just thought it was a no-brainer. I was like, but other people went like, everybody in the room suddenly had a light bulb over their head, and it was like, and I'm kind of going, isn't that kind of like, it's just, where do you go? But I would have thought everybody thought that, but obviously not. But we went for it, and I sent them the design work, and they loved it. You know what I mean? Out of the gate. And then it took a while. Coming out of COVID, we got back on it. And I think we unveiled it the 14th at the Stone Pony, and it was 2 weeks later than it was supposed to be birthed. Let's put it that way, or unveiled. And it was because of the problems that we had with aluminum was the big thing. We couldn't get our hands on any of it. And we even talked to some people in Joliet. We were like, maybe does anybody know what the problem is? And it was everybody. So, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. We had finished putting it together, got it on the truck, got it over to the Stone Pony, and unveiled it at the Stone Pony with the wonderful Smithereens.
Fantastic.
Jim and Dennis were there. Great guys, known them for a long time, and they were very cool about doing that. So the whole thing was cool about it was, besides the fact of, all right, now we know what it's going to look like. We know how large it's going to be. Because the easy part for me is always the art part, putting it together. That kind of is like, that's off the beaten track, because we know that it can be done. We're going to do it. It's going to happen. No problem. We'll weld this thing together, get it painted. I'm making it sound easy, of course. There's a lot of work. But what do we do about this guitar? This is the part I love about my business is, what do we do to make sure that this guitar gets its light of day?
Yep.
So because originally all they wanted to do was pick it up and have it in the back of a truck, and it would go to Joliet, and nobody would know. And one day there'd be a big guitar on their building.
No, I think the way you did the publicity for it was just genius, because it was like when they moved the space shuttle here through LA. At every street corner there was a photo op, and there was a celebrity, and there was I mean, it's the journey of the Gigantor, right?
Right. And so that's what it really was. So we unveiled it in New Jersey with Jim and Dennis from the Smithereens, and the guys that helped me build it. Dan, I always get Dan's last name, Dan Barubi, I think he's such a great he was such a great help helping me. I mean, when you imagine something like this, you know it's going to be big, but you don't realize it until you see pieces of it being cut on the CNC machine, and you're like, oh my God, this thing is going to be crazy big.
Right.
So Dan was amazing in keeping the team together and making sure, because unfortunately I'm a real bitch when it comes to the way I want things. They got to be, if I design it this way, it has to be this way.
In the Barbara Streisand dictionary, if you look up bitch, it just says perfectionist.
Yeah, there you go. Like the other word that comes from Liverpool that we can't mention.
See you next
Tuesday. Yeah.
See you next Tuesday. Yeah,
exactly. So, so the whole thing was, all right, so it's going to take this journey. I think my biggest disappointment was I said to them, look, I've just gotten off the phone with Bill Heckel, and we'd love to get you into the Beatle history world. And so in Illinois, of course, George had played there before the Beatles had even been.
With the late Louise organizing, God rest.
Well, that was it was only 4 hours out of the way. After driving this long trip, it's 4 hours out of the way. And I mentioned this to them, that, look, I'll get a hold of Louise, see if Louise will meet you down there. Because, we've all known Louise. You guys, of course, have known her forever. She was such a nice lady.
She was.
And it would have been wonderful for her to meet them down there. And then they would have, and Bill was like, yeah, well, we can get this, we'll get some pictures at the Cavern Club. And so there was the end to have a little bit of a Beatle thing.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, and probably few and far between, Bill Heckel is one of the owners of the Cavern Club in Liverpool. So just, the little backstory there of who Bill is.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful Bill. Bill's the one that, I guess you could say Bill discovered me and brought me to Liverpool, which he did.
Really?
Yeah.
We brought Bill to Austria, and they drank the pub dry.
Oh, of course.
Hell actually had to send out for more red wine up in the Alps.
We had we did a Beatle Fest sort of a thing. We did the anniversary of Obertauern and the filming of Help, and we flew in Frida Kelly, and we drove in Klaus Vormann and the Cavern Club Beatles, and we had the Cavern Club Beatles, Bill Heckel, and John Keats at a beautiful resort on a lake in Austria. And I called them and said, there's all these noggins coming in from Liverpool. You better lay in some beers and some red wine and some vodka and some tequila and some shots. And they're like, oh, we have enough for a month. We just went into Vienna and we filled up our stock, and we have a big hotel here. We have many guests. We have enough for a month.
Third night, they had to send a truck.
Third night, we ran out of everything.
I'm laughing because I've seen this happen. It's they're professionals. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we practice.
Yes, they're well practiced. They know what they're doing when it comes to.
And of course, Klaus and Frida weren't part of the knees up, but they sat on the outskirt. The bylines, just laughing at how these guys can get it done.
Yeah.
Scousers. Well, Liverpool does begin with liver.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, people ask me all the time. They're like, "Oh, you're from Jersey. That's where you learned how to drink." And I'm like, "Oh no, I thought I knew how to drink
until you went to Liverpool."
Liverpool.
Amateurs, yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry I took you down a rabbit hole.
No, that's okay. We can go back there. We can circle around and come back. So the whole thing with going down and to George's area, I presented it like it was a firecracker. This is like near the end, and then you can jump on Route 66 and make your way up. And they were like, nah, that's kind of off the beaten track. And I was just like, what do you say? I was like, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want it? So it ended up, they didn't go, unfortunately, which I think they lost a great opportunity. And
strapped to a building now, so they're not going to do it again.
Right, that's it. So the other thing they said was, they made their way across. It was done well. People were out there waving in the streets, but the question was, well, you can't unveil it twice. So what do we do when we get it to, because they were thinking about, well, we don't want to unveil it in New Jersey. We want to unveil it here. So I said, let's just do a lighting ceremony.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. So it'll travel over. We'll have the lighting ceremony. And then my wonderful friend, Rick Nielsen, Cheap Trick's guitar player, for people that don't know, and I don't know why they wouldn't know that, right. But I got a hold of Rick and I said, would you like to light up my giant guitar? And he wrote back to me, text me, and just said, I would be honored, Shannon. And it was that simple. And he came down and we hooked up. And yeah, that was kind of the cream on the top, was the cherry on the top, was Rick coming down and from Rockford and flipping the switch. And that's basically the story of Gigantar without all the details. It ended up being what you have to do is you have to make it a big PR stunt. And if you don't, with every piece, I try to do it with everything that I do, because I think you yourselves know, when you're in the Beatle world, there is no one better that knows how to drop a curtain and show what is planned for the next event. And there is no more Beatles, and as we know them as a group, and haven't been since very long time, but we're still here talking about them because it's just a reinvention and reinvention and reinvention. So I learned that whole PR thing from them growing up, watching them.
And I think also, it's Andrew's talking about this morning, getting ready. I can't remember the last time the three of us sat together, but I feel like you and my sister from another mister, because we're in this, what the Beatles creators, people like yourself, and brand ambassadors like Martin runs McCartney.com every single day. It's a Beatles newspaper, and you can bookmark it and get your cup of Mrs. McCartney's tea, she said shamelessly. But we feel like a family, and I think it's that all you need is love, kumbaya, and I think it's the Lapidos is Beatlefest. It's really kept it together as it's an anchor for a lot of people. A lot of people know where they were when they heard a certain song. You mentioned, what was your wedding song? And a lot of times you'll get a Beatle song. I think it's just a phenomenon that, I honestly don't think we'll see it again.
No, I don't.
The Rolling Stones are still touring and they're amazing and I love them and I'm a fan, but there's not the same camaraderie. Community.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be the big argument all the time, but I mean, you can really understand the whole thing when you look at the big difference between the Stones, who again I love as well. Brian Jones was my favorite and still is, even though Mick Taylor and so many great Ronnie Wood. I mean, so many great people have followed. But you look at, one big thing is, in the small time that we knew the Beatles in the States, 6+ years, 6 years and a few months or whatever.
Nothing really. Yeah.
There is all the hits that they had in that little bit of time do not equal the hits that the Rolling Stones have had in all the time that they've had to put out hits. So if that makes sense, that little tiny bit of area that the Beatles had to create overshoots the number, the hits by far that the Stones had their whole career. Not putting
it combined, wasn't it, with
not at all.
Personalities and the sense of humor.
Sure.
And it opened up American eyes to what ordinary working class Liverpool people could do.
And just the self-deprecating, we were talking about
Yeah.
this, the self-deprecating Scouse sense of humor. When you interviewed the Beatles, the famous line was like, which one's which? You all look the same, said the American. Well, this one's George. He's just had a haircut. And John quips, you should have had them all cut. Just old, corny dad jokes. But that's what comes built in with Scousers.
Yeah.
And I think it was a breath of fresh air. It was just after JFK had been assassinated the November before, and America had gone into the most miserable Christmas and Thanksgiving it had known in many, many years. And all of a sudden, February 9th, these guys pop up, and it was like,
what was that?
Right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And at the time, our pop star at the time was John Kennedy in that timing.
Yeah,
I mean, not in a music sense, but he was big TV personality, which TV was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the biggest thing was back then, it didn't matter what color your skin was or anything. There was a plan. There looked like finally there was a road to lead us out of the hell that we had constantly been going into.
Right.
And I think that would just, the assassination. Well, I'm showing my age now because I was shipped home from school that day. You know what I mean? So, I've been intrigued by the whole Kennedy
situation.
I mean, call it what it is, assassination from, not to get into the whole thing because people will have their opinions. But I mean, if you study it and understand it, it's scary. It shows you.
Right. Well, and the Beatles were the first visiting foreign acts. They were horrified. They were on, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, they'd done the Ed Sullivan Show, and then they were going to do shows in DC, and then they went down to Florida, and Brian was busying himself with paperwork on, I believe, a train. And the lads were like, well, what's it? Come on, Brian, we never have time. Let's have a look at the contract. And of course, that's when everybody discovered that these audiences were going to be segregated. And the four lads, as if to be a hydra, one person with four heads, went,
oh no,
not doing it.
Right.
We're not going to go on. Get that out of the contract.
Well,
and at the time, they probably didn't even think about how important that would become in future generations. But I mean, when Angie's first book came out, we were doing some work and some projects and meetings with Reverend Jesse Jackson, and we went to his birthday party in downtown LA. And embarrassingly enough, he didn't put the maths together that Angie's only 18 years older than Paul, or 20 years older than Paul. And oh no, I'm sorry, you're 13 years older. You're 93 and he's 80, so you're 13 years apart.
Yeah.
And he didn't do the math, and he thought Angie
thinking I was his biological mother,
his real mother. And he's like, Mama McCartney, get up here on the stage. I want you to give a big hand for the Freedom Fighter. She brought her boy up right. And we're like, he's already done it. And we're like, not quite. No.
Oops.
But it was, we had a conversation with him afterwards.
And it was done in the right spirit, of course.
And to hear from the Reverend Jesse Jackson that when he was a kid, that uplifted him so much to hear that this band, the Beatles, would not play to segregated audiences. Yeah. These true Beatle fans know these stories, but they don't really get enough of a highlight, I think. And that, the power of people like yourself and art and music to make a statement. You are in a position with a following and your talent to make a statement. That's what I've always loved about you, is that you don't follow the pack. You don't do Abbey Road silhouettes on everything. Yeah. You truly bring it up from the depths of your fandom and your musicality and your art and all of that stuff.
Well,
so how did you get started in all of this? What is the driver for you?
It's funny. There's stories that will be in my book that kind of give you the idea, and I can highlight some of the stuff. Like, I mean, we're talking about that time, when they came over, and I can't remember exactly. I know it was in Ocean Gate, New Jersey, which is we were visiting my Aunt June. I'll give you the real nuts and bolts of the thing. And visiting my Aunt June, and Butchie and Holly were my cousins, and it's my sister and my brother. The two youngest, Eddie and Jay, weren't born yet, but there's Joel, my brother, and my sister Donna, and we're playing. It's I believe it was around probably late April, so the weather's starting to break. It's nice out, and we had heard this. I remember the transistor radios were big back then, and
Right.
the girl next door had a transistor radio. I can't even remember her name. It might have been June. Maybe it was June, but it was either her or brother set up the transistor radio. I think my mom had like an old DeSoto back then, set up the little transistor radio, and it was kind of like, white noise. It was just sound for us. We were running around the front yard, having a great time. And this song came on that we've heard a million times already since February. And it was, I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Yep.
And of course, we started all singing to it, because it was something as young as we were at that time. And then that was it. It kind of went away and it became white noise again. You know what I mean? It was just other music that really didn't have that same pizzazz that took you as an innocent young thing and took you to whatever Beatle heaven it takes you to. So as the day progressed, we're running through my aunt's little house in Ocean. It's a summer home, but it was converted into an everyday home. So it's a tiny place. And in the middle, down the hallway, there's I don't know if they have them over in Liverpool, but there's like grates on the floor. The heater is actually underneath.
Oh yeah.
And it heated the whole house from that little grate in the center.
We have it here in this house.
Yeah, we still have them.
Yeah. So it was a summer home. So it had one little heater where you could actually lift the grate. And I think there was a pilot light and all that stuff on there. But anyway, they're very noisy, which little kids love. So we're running through the house. And every time we ran through the house, we were extra, I always call it feet happy or happy feet when we hit that grate. So you have all 6, 7 of us running through the house to the back, round again. And to us, this was pure amazing. You know what I mean? Kid them. To my aunt and my mom, this was driving them crazy. But they let us get away with it. And finally, coming through the house, and my aunt always had the greatest albums. And she had a stack of LPs on, like you used to be able to put it on the hi-fi. Yeah. And as we were coming through one of the times, All My Loving came on. Right. And I literally, right before I was ready to lunge myself up on that grate, stopped. And that was the moment for me. It was like I watched my kid life go with the other kids. And I just sat there, and this song just captivated me. Wow. And my mom and aunt were wondering, the kids are running around, where'd Shannon go? And they knew I liked to draw. I would find me a pencil, and any mom or babysitter loves the fact that there's one kid. All you need to do, a piece of paper and a pencil, and
shut up.
Yeah. So my aunt gave me the paper, the pencil, and she said to me, "So someone likes the Beatles," and she gave me the album cover of Meet the Beatles. And I basically laid on the floor that rest of that afternoon and just started sketching the album cover.
Wow. Which
ended up being like the whole summer. And if you fast forward, it's me on the floor with bubblegum cards and that awful gum, probably a giant wad of it in my mouth, and just sketching. Now I have 16 magazine and Teen Beat, and I have all these images of these guys. And I don't know what it was. It scared the hell out of my parents, because none of the other kids, kind of, not just my siblings, my cousins, or anybody outside of our realm, was gaga like I was. I mean, maybe if they went a little further, but what they saw me as was one of those nuts that were on TV yelling and screaming when they came to town. So that's my little story of how Beatlemania bit me. Could say, but that's where it all started, and I always loved the music. That's why I became the first band I was in in Bayville, New Jersey, was with Gary Brennan and Donnie Foster, who played drums. And people would be like, do you guys play anything but Beatles? Is it just going to be one song after the other? And we would go away and we'd do like All Right Now or something like that. We'd learn something. But we would end up learning 10 more Beatles songs after that. See, we'd had like 50 Beatles songs and maybe 4 others, you know what I mean? Yeah. So even the band I was in it was very Beatle influenced. By that time, my friend Gary Brennan was the first one that I found that was a friend of mine that got it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, So
well, you were in a time and place and space where you could do Beatles songs. I mean, pity the poor bands in Liverpool who had to then, right after the Beatles broke, because they broke a lot earlier in Liverpool, but pity the poor Freddie and the Dreamers and, Peter Noone and Herman's Hermits and all the guys that came after them who had to be the same, only different. I mean, what a task. Shocking, right?
I don't know how some of them even did it. I guess they broke the way over there. Oh, I don't guess. I know it did. I mean, they would, where there's people will search for it, and they ran to Liverpool and tried to tap into everybody they could, which was a good thing because there was so much great stuff that came out. My God. Or even the surrounding areas.
Makers.
Jerry, absolutely. Jerry and the Pacemakers. And they were all, because they'd been put through their paces and had to do 5 one-hour sets a night from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. with just barely a beer and a bathroom break. They were just workhorses. I mean, this is how the Beatles, obviously got to just being who they were and being able to sit in Abbey Road and Twickenham for weeks on end and just work, because they learned that in Hamburg, and you learned that at the Cavern and the Casbah and all of these clubs, because to get your 15 quid at the end of the night, you had to work a full 8-hour shift, and 5 of it was playing and singing.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people understand that their job as a musician was like a job anywhere else. You
live in the truck. Absolutely. Yeah. No, there was no concession, no good time off for behavior just because you were talented. You still had to put in your 8-hour shift, just like the barman, or bar person. We're not allowed to say barman anymore. Sorry. Yeah. But so then fast forward from your childhood drawings to what did you, when did you actually first start? I think that the kids would love to know the story of when you went over to Liverpool and painted and then had that famous conversation that really kind of set you up as Shannon, the brand, the Beatle artist.
I was I think it was a Charles Rosenet show. I can't remember. I did a couple of them. I might even have met you too. I don't know if I met you at Charles's show.
I can't remember for sure. It might have been.
I don't remember when we met.
I think it was either Charles' show, or did you guys do Toronto by any chance?
I did. Yeah.
With Cynthia and Louise and
Yep. I think was May there too. I can't remember if
May was not. May was not. Cynthia was there, and Cynthia Louise.
I mean,
Ringo lookalike guy who was great.
And I think Pauline
Sutcliffe was there too. Yeah. The late great Paul. Yeah.
But I mean, that's what quick a little segment for.
I think you're right. I think May Pang may have been there, but didn't make an appearance. I think she came to meet with Cynthia.
Right. I got my start. It was a weird thing. I was a musician. I did not paint. A quick thing. A lot of people know in my town, I did not get along with my art teacher. So I had a couple of scholarships all set out for me and everything ready to go. And unfortunately, I didn't get along with my art teacher. She was kind of pretty much a bully when it came to, and the biggest reason she didn't like me was because obviously she didn't like the Beatles. And that's what I drew a lot of. And she used to tell me,
born on Mars? Is she an alien?
Obviously. And she would say to me, you're never going to get anywhere drawing those pigs. And that's been embedded in my mind forever. And
let's find her car and rub skunk oil on the tires.
Well, I think she's gone to the wherever people like that go.
Okay.
So
the waiting.
Yeah. Let's be nice. Please keep it nice now.
Yes. And so all I needed to do was get a passing grade in everything else. And of course, I couldn't fail art. Well, she failed me. 1 mark in period. She failed me. And that was it. And my parents weren't rich. They were far from it. And, we grew up in a very, I wouldn't say we didn't have a lot of money. We just, there it is. We were kind of more on the poor side. So that dream for me went right out the window because scholarships went away. And so what I had done was said, I don't want anything to do with art anymore. I'm done with it. And I didn't have anything to do with it. And I became a musician. That's how I became a musician. I went the other way. So getting back to the art part of it, years later, I opened up my own business, which was a sign business. And I would do, cool little paintings on, it was good money. I made money doing little, I'll design your logo and put it on the side of your truck, And then the airbrush came in, and somebody gave me an airbrush one day, and it was good competition because suddenly the sign business, bear with me on this, I know it's a little, but it is the setup. The sign business was getting whoever could highlight their letters and stuff and numbers or whatever, or logo. It gave it a little dimension. So I started getting into this whole thing with the airbrushing. And then some friends of mine came to my little studio, little sign shop, and said, "You're airbrushing now. Can you create us bowling shirts?" And this was Karen and Kathy Siddons. And I said, "I've never airbrushed on a shirt before." So I said, "I'll give it a shot. If you like it, you like it." So they dropped off the shirts. And basically what I did was I took the bowling ball and the pin, and I made the bowling ball with a big, happy, cartoony little round guy with a tap coming off, his beer tap coming off his head. And the pin was just like a happy face at the top of the pin that comes up. And he had arms. And one arm had a mug of beer, and the other arm was on top of the bowling ball, and he was getting a drink. And I just thought, well, this is cute. They'll love this. Well, forget it. The bowling team went out, and the phone was ringing off the hook.
Wow.
So I was doing constantly airbrushing bug shields, and I was 18 wheelers are pulling in doing, I want skull and bones and this and that and Confederates and, typical male craziness. And then finally I had a little bit of time, and somebody said to me, they've got these things called Beatle festivals. And I said, I've heard of them, but I've never been. And they said, well, they have a battle of the bands thing. And I was like, all right, we're going. So I bought my band there. On the side, I heard they had an art contest. So I did it, my first painting ever, 1991. And it was John Lennon. And it was big. And it was what I was used to. It was sign paint on metal. And it was 4 foot wide by 5 foot high.
Wow.
So I stuck it in the art room, brought it in there, had somebody help me bring it in because the thing was heavy as could be. And then we played, and we did very well playing. The people loved us. I think we did I Am the Walrus, and did the Ain't That a Shame version that John and Cheap Trick did. That little, they had a great version of Ain't That a Shame. So we had a gig that night as well. So packed up the stuff. And we're getting ready to leave, and somebody runs up to me and they're like, "You can't leave." I'm like, "Yeah, we have to leave. We have a gig, and we have to be there to set up and get ready." And they're like, this is how far away the art was to me at that time. They're like, "But you have a piece in the art contest." And I was like, oh my God, I almost left without it. So I go back in. The painting's gone. I'm like, what's my painting? And, it's not something small. It's like 4 foot by 5 foot. It's missing.
Flip it first and make out the back door, right?
Right. So I'm like, I'm panicking. I'm like, somebody stole it. I should have kept an eye on it. And they're like, it's actually in the auditorium. So I went into the auditorium, and I'm thinking there's nobody in there. So I go in the auditorium, it's packed. And just as I'm walking in, they announce in first place goes to Shannon McDonald. And I'm like, oh my God, not even thinking about it. So that's what had happened was they had said to me, you should come back and do more art. So I did. And that's how this whole thing started, with like going and having fun with the Battle of the Bands, throwing a little piece of, a big piece of art in the art thing, just for fun, getting first place, asked to be back. And then I started being asked to do other Beatle things all over the place.
Yeah.
As basically as a vendor. So it was at Charles Rosenay's show.
Okay.
These guys from the Cavern Club come up to me, and it was Bill Heckle, and it was Ray Johnson.
Yeah.
I love Ray. Ray is such a good guy as well. And they're not really paying attention to me. I'm doing my spiel. Hi, I'm Shannon. I do this, and this is, but they're just looking at all the work. And Bill's words were, which I had never heard before, gobsmacked. And as an American, why would I know that word? But so I'm not sure if this means this is good or bad. But it's bad. Yeah. So he says, we've got an idea. We got a project we're working on, and we'll get a hold of you. Give me a little bit of time. We exchanged numbers. And I thought it was really cool because I knew they were from the Cavern Club. Right. And being an American that's into the Beatles, of course I knew what the Cavern Club was. I mean, any Beatle, but Liverpool to me, even at that time, was fairyland. You can get, you know what I mean? Liverpool. That's my favorite in the whole world. That's where they're from. But that's a trip on a rocket ship, 2 planets, and a Saturn away. It just seemed like you'd never get there.
Right.
So I wait like a girlfriend waiting for the breakup call that you had a break. I'm waiting by the phone for Bill Heckle to call me, and I'm waiting. So weeks go by, 6 months, and finally I'm like, this happens, So by that time, I started doing stuff with doing postage stamps of like James Dean, Elvis, Sylvester Stallone. I get hooked up with Sly. Sly invites, he says, we can't do anything for you in America. I mean, in on the East Coast, you have to move to LA. I moved to LA. And it was about, that was 94 when I met Bill. And he called me in 97.
Oh, yeah, well, it takes us a minute sometimes.
It's at 4:00 in the morning, and it's like,
funny.
Shannon, it's, Bill Heckle, and I'm like, 4:00 in the morning. So I have this thing about, I need to, if it's a real business call, I have this thing about, I need to be awake. I'm not going to just say that. So I said, hold please. And I ran into the bathroom to grab a washcloth, a face cloth, hit cold water, and just wake myself up. And I didn't put my glasses on. So as I'm running into there, I smashed my pinky so bad on the door edge, and had the washcloth, actually put it in my face because I probably sounded like Fay Ray. Well, obviously I didn't need the water to wake myself up anymore. So I got myself together, got back on the phone, and basically Bill said, we have a project for you, and we'd love to fly you over. And by that time, I realized it really was Bill, because at first I thought, oh my God, you know what I mean? This is my friends playing a game or whatever.
Yeah.
And so fast forward a little bit more, I find myself on a plane. I decided to go by myself. I wanted to hit this head on by myself. Bill did give me a chaperone that met me in London and drove me up. And when I finally got there, I went into the old Cavern City Tours were actually in the Hard Day's Night Hotel building at the time, Central Building at the time. I went up, met Bill, remembered him. I couldn't remember even, it'd been that long that I didn't even remember what he looked like. Saw him and immediately knew it was him. And he was just like engulfed as usual. And he just looked at me and said, right, you're here. You're going to jump in a car, you know, typical Bill. You're going to shoot you down to the town hall. You're going to go meet the Lord Mayor. So
nice. We've been there, done that too. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
So it was very cold. There was snow on the ground, which they told me was very unusual. So I get in the cab, and now there's other people getting in that I guess are bringing me down there. People, so we're all doing introductions. And finally I go, and it's not that far. It's right up the road. So it's not a long cab drive.
Tiny town.
Yeah. So I looked at them and I'm like, is there really a Lord Mayor? I thought he was like a fictitious character on a submarine, right? And they started laughing. Yep.
Been one since the 1300s. Liverpool is one of the oldest cities in Europe.
And what do I know? You know, so I'm thinking they're pulling my leg. I'm like I said, I'm by myself. I'm exhausted, tired because it was a long flight over. And so I got there, and that's when I got was given the title, The World's Greatest Beatles Artist, which Bill had set up, which I didn't know was going to happen. And of course, the gentleman was very nice. I believe he's since passed by them, but you know, they had the big gold or brass or whatever
building. It's gorgeous,
dressed to the nines, and Princess Anne was just there before me, and had signed one side of the book, the history book that I guess they put away for all the people that visit. And so she's on the left and I'm on the right of this page. Fantastic. And I believe from what I remember that I wrote, Liverpool, I will someday make you my home, something like that. So Shannon, which, and then that was it. You know, I spent some time with him. I gave him some stuff. I found out that there was a hospital there, Alderhay, and I did bring gifts that I wanted because I love the kids. I love anything to do with kids.
Alderhay saved my life. I had my kidney removed at Alderhay, and they saved my life.
See, what a great place. And so I always do stuff with them. Here's to Alderhay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, without Alderhay, there wouldn't be a Ruth.
Right. So good for you. That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. And so went back afterwards, went to Liverpool. I'm sorry, to Cavern City Tours. And that's when Bill told me about the Hard Day's Night Hotel. And that's what made Bill gobsmacked about my work, was the Hard Day's Night Hotel could not use photographs. Right. But he said I was the missing puzzle because my work looked like photographs.
Yes,
so I could not copy photographs, but he had seen that. Like I've never seen that before. And I told him, yeah, because
out of your head.
I go and make it up to be something that could have happened, have the same clothing. Like if somebody says, I want a painting of John Lennon, 1966, December, I know that's how well I know them. I know what they were wearing, what their haircut was, you know, so you see a lot of paintings out there and they're good, some of them, but you'll notice they'll have John 1964, Paul 64, Ringo 64, and George will be like 1970. It's like immediately Beatle people are like,
know what you mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
Mm-hmm. And it happens a lot.
That one granny crocheted vest that'll stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically how, I mean, I got my start from being invited to do other things, but to get to Liverpool was definitely through Bill Heckle. And of course, you know, I got to meet Dave and you know, now John runs it, but there was
and Julia there.
Yeah, and Julia I met actually at the old Strawberry Fields. The first time I had met her, I had my mom with me. My mom came with me in 1998. I brought her there, and she was amazed. And my mom, speaking of Bill, and the menace to society that he is, just kidding, to my father. Neil, there was a big thing going on that week that it was Neil Innes, who I had just met, and Bill were arguing about who was going to drink who under the table.
Yeah.
So Bill said, and being a big fan of Neil and of course the Ruddles and all that stuff, it was like, I asked him, you know, I was like, I'm such a fan. He goes, I'll introduce you later. You come back later on. You and your mom do this, that, go eat. So I come back and I go to the table and where they're all hanging out, and they're as they call it, pissed. There's empty everything.
3 yards in. Yeah.
And so I looked at Bill and I'm like, I missed him. Neil Innes, of course, I missed him. And he goes, and I look under the table, and I was like, oh my God, they really drink each other under the
table. That's where it comes to how sweet to be a drunken idiot.
Yeah.
I miss Neil. So, we went to, my friend Ken Barker and I went over in '97 we rented like broadcast cameras, and we did we have the last interviews of Bob Wooler. I have the last interview of Billy Preston, actually, which I did here. And Neil Innes, we stayed with Neil and his lovely bride for a couple of nights, actually. And then we went down and stayed with Cynthia and her then husband, Jim, sorry. And so, yeah, Neil was just an absolute genius. Neil Innes, INNES, for those of you who don't know who Neil Innes was, my goodness, absolute genius.
Such a sweetheart too. I mean, the last time I saw him was at the last Beatle Week. Yeah. And we had spoken, which was nice. You know, the last one he was at, and he had been kind enough to come up to me, and you know, because I had met him so many years before. I did meet him again the next day after. Yeah. But it was nice that he had said that my work had just become, from the first time that he met me in '98, how much it had really fruition. But the funny part was, once I saw, you know, Bill had left me there with the other people at the table. Well, Neil was underneath. He went away to say hello to my mom, Bill. So I'm talking, we're having a good conversation with all these new people I met. And that was probably 45 minutes. And of course, I'm starting to have a bit to drink as well, and I'm feeling my oats. So finally Bill comes back over and goes, yeah, we left your mom in good hands. So I go back over. My mom, who does not drink, is not trashed. She's trashed. She is
what we call shit-faced in the industry.
Yes.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm
gonna oh, that's funny.
Plug in my computer, it's running low. But yeah, so that was the first time I got to see my mother in my entire life.
Tipsy.
And she was fun. She was that fun kind of, took her up to the room, which we were at the Adelphi. Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful hotel in Liverpool.
Moving on.
Eyes roll. So, yeah, well, that's, I know it's a long story to get to that place.
Yeah, but what a journey. What a life.
It was Bill that brought me over, and he's been amazing ever since. And he's kept me coming to Liverpool for many years. And now it's, honestly, it's like, I used to say it was my home away from home, but it really is my home. You know, people are always like, why don't you move there?
Home is where the heart is, don't they say? And so I presume all of these stories are in your forthcoming book. Just tell the kids briefly about what that is and when it's coming and how many copies there will be, because I know that there's a limited edition run, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, not even maybe, that I put the cover, finally finished the cover. Shannon, the art, the book, The Beatles and More, which has been the title since the 90s, when I, thank God I didn't put it out back then, because of course I've got so many great stories that go in it now that coincide with art. And of course it's mainly art. It's probably it is a coffee table book with my artwork in it. So you're going to have probably 75% artwork.
Great.
The stories are, they're mostly the comical parts of my life that happened, because I want to keep it upbeat. I want to keep it, there's tragedy in everybody's lives, but I don't think that's something that needs to be in a book that only has 30% words in it. So I'm going to keep it that way. But that day that I released the cover page, the cover, I found out that we're going to run into a little bit of a problem because we have over 500 people that want the limited edition. Okay. And there's only going to be like 50 of the limited edition.
Well, maybe I can make an introduction for you. We'll talk behind the scenes.
Okay. Yeah, because at this point we're, the people that I'm involved with, we're like, well, if you do a Kickstarter campaign, you can kind of, and I hate to weed them out, but there is another one that we didn't get a chance to talk about. Not us three, but the world that's interested, and that the top one, the book will be like $40-$50. The usual coffee table. It is bigger than most books. It's I think it's 15 by 17 something, or 14 by 17. So it is quite a nice book, because I do want the artwork to be seen.
No, I can definitely make a New York publisher big time on demand high end print introduction for you. They are the people that, not to cut you off, but they produced this Ticket to Ride book for Angie, and it's got like spot color ink on the cover, and this is the Liverpool, London, Hamburg, New York, LA tour guide book, but it's a hard copy. It's beautiful, shiny pages, full color imagery, CMYK printing. So
it's good.
I might be able to solve your on demand.
Yeah, that would
because
be
you now have 501 people. Elizabeth Evangelista is on your limited edition list. She wants one.
There you go. But the other side of it is there's going to be probably about 30 of the books that'll have one blank page in it. Mm-hmm. And that will be the one that comes in a box. And that one blank page, you can get a Beatle sketch at one face, your favorite Beatle that I would sketch. And that comes with the book, with the sign and number. So there's more than one limited edition per se. There's the signed and numbered, and then there's the signed and numbered with the actual artwork that comes in.
Wow,
so,
that's great.
And then there's the one that's just your usual. And a lot of people, I know they're disappointed because it's not going to be on a downloadable situation. But
no, you can't do that with your art. No,
you can't do it. Exactly. I have enough time. I could hire somebody and probably live off of it full end of chasing people down that have used my artwork all over the world. It's amazing. It's impossible to get everybody. But it's amazing how much far more money that I make, other people are making, which I'm sure it happens to many people, especially in the Beatle world. I mean, it just
certainly does. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so the book, I'm looking forward to the book. So it will be out. I'm hoping and praying this time that it's going to be out in June. And honestly, the only holdup on it is there's a couple more stories that I want to make sure that are in there. And I have about 4 more art pieces that I got to make sure are in there. So they have to be finished and photographed. But I'm feeling June is a good time. It's a good time of year. And it's great at that point, I'll be traveling around and looking forward to seeing people out there, talking about the book.
It's been an absolute joy. All of the comments and everything are amazing.
So why don't you tell the folks where they can find you, where they can buy, or find out more about how to buy, or
join the Shannon fan club?
Exactly.
Facebook is easy, but to get the Facebook, home is www.artistshannon.com. Very simple now, artist Shannon, ARTISTSHANNON.com. And from there, they can get to anything, and we'll be pushing that as well on the website. And join me on Facebook and any social media platform you can get to.
We always refer people to you.
Exactly.
And today's show will eventually be on Facebook.
No, it's streaming live on Facebook
now. On YouTube.
YouTube, right.
Exactly. Yeah. So because you're a big celebrity Beatle World guest, we actually wrote you your own limerick
In our
today.
dramas this morning.
In our jammies. So after that, there's a break, and after that, there's a break.
Yeah.
Because we haven't rehearsed this, as you can as you're about to find out.
Yes.
So a 1, 2,
and the
3. We'd like to thank Shannon for sharing. Gigantor is certainly daring, but her Beatles art girl is the best in the world. It will just leave
you gobsmacked
and staring.
I love it. You got gobsmacked in there, and you probably, that's amazing.
Martin told us to do it again.
Is that ridiculous? You said gobsmacked, and there it was.
You guys must have been like, "Oh my God, this is going to be great!" You know. I'm very happy to be here with you both on this.
Let's do it one more time.
Do it right.
1, 2, 3. We'd like to thank Shannon for sharing. Gigantor is certainly daring, but her Beatles art girl is the best in the world. It will leave you just gobsmacked and staring. There you go. We got it right that time.
I love it. Can I say one thing? My best friend in the world, Maggie, is having a birthday. Can I just say happy birthday to Maggie?
Please do.
Hi, absolutely.
An amazing woman that's been in my life for a long time. My bestie for everything. She's always got my back, and I just wanted to say she's well deserved of a happy birthday. And I thank you both for letting me do that.
Oh, it's a
you
pleasure.
are so very welcome.
Loved having you.
And in 3.5 hours in the UK, it's technically my birthday, so I almost share one with her.
And that's amazing. And happy birthday to you.
Yeah, 15th of February.
And 38 years old. It's amazing.
Well, this has been an absolute joy. When the book comes out, please let's do it again.
Yes.
You can squeeze this in.
Sure.
And everybody go to artistshannon.com and get your groove on. And happy Valentine's. And happy birthday, Debbie. All right, kids. We'll see you all next Tuesday. Take care.
Bye-bye.